The following program is brought to you courtesy of a grant provided by the Bank of Princeton.
Good evening, this is Lou Goldstein, and welcome to another edition of Focus On. Tonight my guest is Sal Risalvato, who is the Executive Director of the New Jersey Gasoline Convenience Automotive Association, NJGCA, which is a statewide trade organization representing 1,500 small businesses. He's a lifelong New Jersey resident and former small business owner with over 23 years' experience in the gasoline retail industry. A small business advocate, Mr. Risalvato was elected as a delegate to both the 86 and 95 White House conferences on small business. His blunt spoken style has won him national attention, and he has been quoted in the editorial pages of leading national and statewide newspapers such as the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, and the Newark Star-Ledger. A self-described Reform Democrat, Sal is no stranger to politics. He addressed the 1996 Republican National Convention and served as a senior staffer on 4 New Jersey statewide political campaigns. His current efforts, though, are focused on defending the small business community in New Jersey and giving small businessmen a voice in Trenton. Reducing America's reliance on foreign oil and developing small business efforts to increase the use of alternative fuels such as hydrogen and ethanol are among Sal's priorities. Promoting pro-small business and pro-free enterprise ideals remain the focus of his work. Sal, welcome to the show tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, great you could make it. And as two Bergen County guys talking to one another, I wanted to just ask you one quick question, and that is, growing up, did you ever think you'd be doing a job like this?
I had no clue that I would ever be doing things like this.
Oh, see things happen in strange ways. I want to ask you a quick question, though. The federal EPA recently had a decision to provide a waiver that would allow gasoline to be sold containing 15% ethanol, or E15. I know ethanol comes in a variety of sources, but it's endlessly renewable as opposed to oil. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about that and your perception of the EPA, the waiver, and your thoughts on that.
Well, I have to tell you, I have conflicting thoughts on that. Okay. First, I am a strong proponent of ethanol in gasoline. In fact, I'm a strong proponent of ethanol as a fuel, period. And I have been involved in ethanol production since 1979. So I like the idea of using ethanol. However, I recently wrote the committee in Congress that was holding hearings on this subject, and I opposed the waiver to allow E15, which is 15% ethanol for every gallon of gas that you purchase. It would be 15% ethanol and 85% gasoline. I oppose that, and the reason that I oppose it is this. It's not approved at that high of a concentration of ethanol in all vehicles. And as long as it's not approved in all vehicles, I believe that there's a serious liability problem for the members of my association that sell gasoline. I believe it's a problem for the equipment that dispenses ethanol. I believe it's a problem for the equipment that stores, the underground storage tanks. Right. And I believe that there could be liability problems if E15 is put in the wrong vehicles, accidentally. And until those problems are worked out, then I will oppose the waiver, and I've asked Congress to reconsider the allowance of E15 rather than E10, which is what we've all been putting in our vehicles for the last 10 years anyway.
Right. Now, can you talk a little bit more about ethanol and why it may be, a wave of the future?
Well, the reason that I am a proponent of ethanol, and have been, is because ethanol is completely and totally renewable. Is it the answer to all of our energy problems? No. Okay. But it can help us solve our energy problems, because there will be a last drop of oil. Someday on this earth, there will be a last drop of oil. The oil that we have on this earth now took between 4 and 10 million years to be produced by the earth for us to extract it and use in our energy consumption. It is not renewable. Experts disagree as to when that last drop will be, but as it gets closer and closer to the last drop, supplies get tight, and we have a very, very volatile energy market because of it worldwide. Our economy stems from the volatility of energy. And if we could start to switch over to renewable forms of energy, and ethanol is a liquid energy, and we need liquid energy to propel our vehicles. As long as we start to move towards renewable energy sources and reduce our reliance on energy from outside the borders of our country, then we will be far better off, and we will keep ourselves from someday having a huge energy disaster and certainly an economic disaster.
How does ethanol compare with, say, the electric cars that a lot of companies are starting to look at?
Well, I am just beginning to investigate electric cars and how they compare in terms of cost and energy consumption. There's something we have to keep in mind about an electric car. We have to make the electricity.
Right.
And how do we make electricity? When we use nuclear power to make electricity, that's clean and that's cheap and it's abundant. If we use number 2 oil, which is refined from crude oil, to generate the electricity, well, we're not helping our energy problems, plus we have emissions into the atmosphere that cause difficulties. If we use coal to generate the electricity, then we are still using a resource that also will run dry someday. And we also have an emissions problem with that. Ethanol is totally renewable, and I don't have a comparison with electricity yet, but we have to keep in mind electricity, and I favor electricity, and I hope we move in that direction. I believe that electricity has to be done properly through renewable sources. Wind or solar or wave generation or hydro generation. But as long as we're going to use sources to produce electricity that are not infinite sources,
right,
we still have a problem.
Do you think it would be a benefit for the small business owner if the United States had an energy policy?
I think that it would be better for not just the small business owner, but big business as well, and ultimately all of us as citizens and consumers. To have a stable energy network where supply is just a matter of reaching out and taking it, and where the supply is abundant enough that it is affordable and cheap,
right,
and does not cause environmental problems, I think that is a huge victory for the American consumer and for us as citizens and our civilization into perpetuity.
Okay. I know we have about 112,000 gas stations in the United States, employing over 850,000 employees. And in New Jersey, though, one of the questions that I hear people talk about is, why can't we pump our own gas? You know, you go from state to state, you go to Pennsylvania, you pump your own gas, you go to New York, you pump your own gas, you come to New Jersey, you got to roll down the window, and a gas attendant comes up and they pump your gas. So why in New Jersey, why can't we pump our own gas in New Jersey?
I think that if you want to know why we can't, I think then you need to have legislators sitting in the seat that I'm sitting in, and you ask them that question. There are pros and cons for both the small business operator that sells gasoline at retail as to why there should or should not be self-serve. There are also pros and cons for the consumer as to why there should or should not be self-serve. Self-serve is not permitted in New Jersey or Oregon. As to the reasons why we do not have self-serve, you will have to ask the legislature. I was not around during the days when self-serve was banned.
Okay.
There are arguments, again, on both sides, and I cannot accurately answer that question for you.
Okay, that's fair. Let's go to gas prices, which is a favorite topic of everyone. Gas prices 3 years ago, the national average was about $4.11. That was in 2008. Now we're in 2011, and early this spring, gas prices were driving up around that mark again, and with forecasters saying that would be $5 by the summer. Never hit the $5 mark, but yet it's still hovering pretty high. It's in the high threes right now for gas. So why is the price of gas so high right now when arguably, our supplies are high, our reserves are high, and people know that the more money that they put out for gasoline, the less money they have to spend on other things they want to spend on it, and really the cost drives up for the small businesses too to stay in business.
Well, I have a few answers for you here. First, I am going to start off by saying the best remedy for high gas prices is high gas prices. The marketplace ultimately does work. You talked about those prices in 2008, and you talked about how it affects the consumer. I believe very strongly that it was that escalation of gasoline and energy prices in the first 6 months of 2008 that precipitated the recession we have experienced since then that we cannot get out of. We've had a tremendous amount of volatility since then. I spoke about volatility earlier.
Right.
The volatility is caused by the energy markets themselves. Gasoline is a commodity. Crude oil is a commodity. Heating oil is a commodity. Natural gas is a commodity. Energy in its entirety is a commodity. It's bought and sold every day like stocks and bonds. And there are very, very wealthy financial traders that they bet every day on energy the way somebody else bets on a stock going up or down. And when these traders start to trade the price up, and it could simply be because of news that a storm system may be coming and cause a depletion of supplies, or political unrest somewhere in the world that could cause an interruption of supplies. Those are things where then the investors and the financial community, they gamble the price up. They bet that the price is going to go up because there's going to be a supply interruption. When the price goes up, it tends to rise very quickly. When it gets to a certain point, and those people that gambled the price upwards continue to survey the situation and see that their bet was wrong, the price starts to tumble. We've had very crazy volatility in this year, in 2011. As high as you just mentioned the price was earlier this year, if you go out to the pumps now, the price has come down about 60 cents a gallon. Since then.
Would you argue that maybe people are betting the price going down?
Well, right now, those people are betting the price down.
Right.
Because the marketplace is saying that that's what they have to do. And you mentioned supplies, stable.
Reserves.
We have got more than ample supply in inventory in this country of both crude oil and gasoline, and for that matter, heating oil and diesel fuel, which, by the way, are the same thing.
Right.
So we have a stable supply. Demand in this country has been flat since 2008. It goes up a little bit, but very, very little bit, almost not even noticeable. And it comes down the same amount. It has been flat. There is no demand in this country. Now, one of the reasons that there is no demand is that the price is high. Another reason that there is no demand and consumption of these products is because the economy is so bad that people are trying to figure out, how can I use less? And if everybody just uses one less gallon a week, in the end, that affects the market and it makes the price come down. So we have this volatility in the marketplace, and we will continue to see that until we have a stable source of energy. And I don't think we're close to that yet. So I think we can continue seeing this type of volatility into the future.
Okay. The oil companies have made huge profits over the last couple of quarters, the last couple of years over their quarters. They've made record-setting profits. And to speculate that we have a stable supply, we have the reserves, but yet if we use 1 gallon less a week, that would make a big impact in our economy and the prices, going down, is I think what you were saying. So my question to you now is, if the oil companies somehow came on board and said, you know what, in order to get jobs going, in order to help small businessmen, we're going to drop the gas. We're going to just drop it. We know we have the reserves. We're going to drop the gas. Wouldn't that do more than anything to create jobs in this country, to get small businesses going so that they don't have to fold because they can't afford all the transportation costs that are involved in some of the businesses? If the oil companies just said, you know what, instead of being greedy for once, we're going to just drop our prices.
Theoretically,
Theoretically.
the answer to your question is yes. However,
Okay.
in reality, that will never happen. The oil companies aren't going to all get together and say, what can we do to help small business owners or motorists? They're not going to do that, nor should they. We have a free market, capitalist society. We thrive on that. The success of our nation has been built on that. The oil companies have made huge profits.
Right.
Now, I don't want you to think that I am favoring those profits. They are entitled and they have every right to make those profits. Just like I won't criticize them for that, I don't pull out a violin and cry for them when their profits go down, because we have to look at the times when gasoline and crude oil, the price does come down. Now, they are far less times that happens than when it goes up. The benchmark for oil companies or anybody that possesses oil
Right.
to make a profit is somewhere between $50 and $65 a barrel. So that means when we take it out of the ground, if they were to charge, let's say, $50 a barrel, they have made a profit. They can make a profit. So when it goes higher than $50, they're making excessive profits. When we saw oil go to $147 a barrel back in 2008, that was artificially high. The marketplace ultimately rejected that, and we started to see $30 a barrel. And $30 a barrel was as artificially low as the 147 was artificially high.
Right.
There's always a correction in the market, and that's determined by what will people be willing to pay. I don't take out a violin for the oil companies when they don't get to make those profits.
Okay.
However, to suggest that they would or should do that would, I believe, be dreaming. And I believe that the marketplace in and of itself will make the necessary corrections. And today we see oil at about $85 a barrel. It's been bouncing back and forth between $80 and $90 over the last month or so. I believe that unless there's an economic uptick,
Right.
I think that we could see it drop even lower, unless there's any kind of political unrest somewhere in the world that indicates to the people that are trading oil that we may have a slight supply interruption. So even though we've got a demand that is flat, that ratio won't be balanced, and then that would keep the price inflated. All of these factors are being dealt with not just every day, but every minute of every day. There are people that are watching the marketplace and gambling and betting, buying and selling. And we have to live with that until we have many sources of abundant energy, and they have to compete with each other.
Right.
Right now, every time other types of energies emerge, and this has been happening since 1979, at least which is as long as I've been following it as an adult. Every time other energies start to emerge, the price of petroleum and fossil fuels starts to come down in conjunction with economic activity. And what does it do? It keeps those other energies in a place where they can never break out. And we keep getting stuck with the fossil fuels and petroleum products, and we never ever get to the alternate energies. If we start getting those energies to really break through, and I believe we're on the cusp of that, with solar energy, with wind energy, with ethanol, with things like hydrogen, when we start doing all of those things, and they are really competing and boxing with fossil fuels and petroleum and gasoline, then we're going to start to see a little bit more stability, because that marketplace can't rise as rapidly as it does, because people will not be using that energy. They'll be using something else.
Okay. I just want to switch our attention to another subject, because we could go on and talk about a lot about gas and oil for a long time. And we may
Put the air conditioning on. I'll stay here all night and talk about these things, because I get a little pumped up on all of this stuff.
It's all good. You know, you have to have passion for what you're doing, you know, and I know you've been doing a great job. The Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund. Recently you praised Governor Christie and his effort to minimize the burden on employers of an increase in taxes paid to the Unemployment Trust Fund. Can you explain this a little bit?
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Governor Christie did not have the authority to change the rate of unemployment tax that small businesses would be paying, because there was a formula that was put in place back in the early 1980s. And that formula said, when the Unemployment Trust Fund is depleted to a certain level, that taxes on employers would be raised to a particular level to replenish the fund.
Right.
That was done under reforms in the 1980s, because New Jersey owed the federal government $750 million that we had borrowed because we couldn't pay all of our unemployment claims. And we had people collecting unemployment, and we had people laying on the beach collecting unemployment. Not that we still do not have that situation, but it was more severe then than it is now, I believe.
Where they got this show, Jersey Shore.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, there were reforms that were put in place back in the 1980s, 1984
mid-80s,
to be exact. And what it did was it came up with a formula to pay the federal government back that $750 million over 10 years. And it did that by changing the way unemployment was paid out and who could collect it and the amount that employers paid. It also put a formula in place that said we will build this fund so that there's a reserve so this never happens again. But should it happen again and the fund is depleted, then automatically taxes are raised on employers, knowing that that would be so distasteful that the legislature would never let the fund get to that point. However, they were wrong about that, because that fund built up almost $5 billion and had $5 billion in reserve. And in the last 8 years, our state government has said, we need money. We're going to go into that fund and we're going to take it. To the point where we now owe the federal government, again, almost $2 billion. So the fund was depleted to a point where Governor Christie, or any governor, no matter who it was, had absolutely no say in the matter and had to increase taxes on employers. What Governor Christie did do, because he did have the authority to do it, was say, we're going to change how we take it. We're going to reform some things that he had the ability to reform. We're going to change who gets unemployment, how much they get, the rate at which they get it, and tweak some of those things so that the amount of money going in wouldn't be as harmful, with less of an increase going into the fund as well.
Right.
So what he did was he slowed the rate of tax increase. So rather than in the first year that Governor Christie did this, an employer would have had to pay about an average of $400 per employee per year to pay their share of the increase into the unemployment trust fund. Okay. To satisfy the formula that was put in place in 1984, long before Governor Christie ever thought about being governor.
Right.
Well, what Governor Christie did was he made these tweaks so that the average increase was about $150 per employee. So is it distasteful to have an increase, particularly in a time when we have an economic slowdown? The answer is yes, that is distasteful. However, it would have been backbreaking, it would have been crushing, it would have been disastrous for the same small businesses that are struggling, having to pay about a $150 increase per employee, to have paid a $400 per employee increase.
Let me ask you a quick question as a follow-up to that. With Governor Christie, some of the legislation that's been adopted by the legislature and some of Governor Christie's actions, as far as small business is concerned in your organization, has Governor Christie been a friend of small business?
In general, I will say yes. If we focus on an issue that my members take to heart, it was the elimination of motor vehicle safety inspections. When the governor did that, we still believe that he made a mistake, that it was wrong for the citizens of the state of New Jersey, and it was wrong for the small businesses in the state of New Jersey. But in general, the practices that he has tried to change in Trenton, the reforms he has tried to put in place, the reforms he has put in place, over the long term will benefit small business owners and will benefit the citizens of the state of New Jersey. But on that one particular issue, right, we take serious issue and have disagreement with the governor on that. And well, he knows that I'm not happy about it.
Well, I know you're not shy about, voicing your opinion. But before we run out of time, they're giving me a sign that we're getting close to running out of time. One last question. If you had a crystal ball, looked into it, or a wish list that you'd like to see happen, what would that one or two things be, and why?
I would like to see less regulation on all small businesses, but I would like a reform in particular, of environmental regulations that would ease the burden on the members of my association. I would like to see tax rates continue to go down. I would like to, in particular, property taxes. My members pay huge amounts of property taxes at their businesses and in their homes. So they're struggling to make a profit at their businesses, and then what is left over, they have to pay the bills at home. That's the reason they have their businesses. So these are all huge burdens. I would love to see the state of New Jersey implement an education reform that spends our tax dollars much more efficiently, and certainly with a better outcome of education, that when employees walk in the door of my business, my members' businesses, to be hired, they can do the job because they have been prepared properly in school. And that is not the case, and it hasn't been the case for a long time. Okay, well, the education question is a question that we can take on another show another day. Unfortunately, today we've run out of time, and Sal, it was great having you on, and we hope that you keep doing good things and not be shy about, talking about the things that matter most to people in the state of New Jersey. For Focus on Education, this is Lou Goldstein saying good night, and also saying stay involved, stay healthy and stay focused, and we'll see you next week. Good night.
This program was brought to you through a grant provided by the Bank of Princeton.